Welcome all. All right, I think we have reached critical mass. Welcome to the first ever US Digital Response Stretch Clap Partner Awards. This is the first ever USDR Partner Awards because this is the first ever year that USDR has existed. And we wanted to do this event because we wanted to take a moment in a year where it is just so tempting and so important to keep our heads down and our nose to the grindstone and work incredibly hard to deliver services to our communities day after day. We know that it is still incredibly important to take a pause, to reflect on all the work that's been accomplished, and most importantly, from the perspective of USDR, to thank and recognize all of you, our government and community-based organization partners who are out there doing the work day after day, and to introduce you to one of the ways that we at USDR like to celebrate. So that transitions us to a moment of explanation. So what is a stretch clap? A stretch clap was something that was born uniquely out of the start of the pandemic when USDR was born as an entirely virtual organization. We came together, started hosting every other week a show and tell, and realized pretty quickly that on shared Zoom screens, we needed a way to be able to applaud for one another without actually being able to hear each other on muted screens. And so we came up with the stretch clap. The stretch clap is the way that we applaud. You can also, for accessibility purposes, use the icon of applause on your screen, but it is a way to show enthusiasm and appreciation for someone else in the room while we are distributed in different places. So for today, the Stretch Clap Awards are our way of showing that appreciation for you. Before we actually turn it over to our next speaker, I also just wanted to say right now, we are all looking at our individual screens, but today is so much about coming together as a community. So if you could take a moment and introduce yourself in the chat to all of the other attendees so that we can know who's here, where you're coming from, maybe what's the view at your window right now or in your office right now. Just give us a little bit of color so that we know who's in the room and we can all say hi to each other. All right. With that said, today we are going to do a couple of things. First, we're going to hear from one of our co-founders, Jen Polka. Then we're going to give you a little bit of a moment of sharing what has been happening over the past year. And then we're going to dive right into a series of Stretch Clap Awards. And finally, we're going to actually hear from some panelists, from some of the people that have been working day in and day out in their communities as USDR partners. And so we will invite them up on stage a little bit later over the course of this hour. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Jen.
Hi, I need to get on video. Someone turn my video on. Okay, great.
The words are live.
Hi, everybody. My enthusiasm and gratitude and appreciation, I hope we're coming through without the video. I'm just really honored and grateful to be here today. Thank you, Jess, for kicking us off. Man, it has been a year, hasn't it? I think this year has tested us all. We've had to sort of shift our understanding of work and home life. We've had to come together to help our families and our friends and our neighbors. And now, of course, we have to relearn what real pants and shoes feel like. Trying to find my real life shoes and get out of my sneakers now that I can leave the house. I'm vaccinated. This past year has also showed us how resilient civic tech, which is designed in the public interest with humanity and equity at its core, can literally save lives. We saw governments all over the country step up to meet the needs of millions with the speed that a rapidly spreading pandemic demanded. This group, US Digital Response, which started on Slack chats and Zoom calls and soon became so much bigger, a network of volunteer technologists eager to put their brilliance, their time, and their experience to work for their communities, has been honored and humbled to work with our government partners from coast to coast, north to south, in big cities and sprawling prairies, from factory towns to farming communities. Overall, we've now worked with more than 200 government and nonprofit partners in 36 states and territories, serving more than 18.5 million people across the nation on projects that helped with COVID testing, vaccination rollout, elections, voting access, housing, food security, unemployment insurance, and everything you can think of. USDR is nothing without the governments who stepped up. We came about to meet this moment with you alongside so many others, and I know that we're not stepping down now. There's so much more that we can do to meet the next crisis and, sadly, the one after it. The more we prepare and the more we partner and the depth of those relationships, the better we can all meet the challenges of the future. So, like I said, it's been quite a year. And I really just can't wait to see what we do together next. So thanks for letting me be part of it. Thanks to an amazing team. And Jessica, let's do some celebration and appreciation. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Jen. I will briefly join you back on video as well. There we go. Perfect. All right, now is a great moment for me to introduce myself, which I realized I forgot to do at the opening. So I think I've met many of you, but for those who I haven't met, my name is Jessica Cole. I am one of the co-founders of USDR and COO here. And one of my favorite hats I get to wear is working directly with government's team and directly with a number of our partners. And so today I want to share a little bit more color on some of those stories that Jen mentioned about what we've done together over this past year. So first, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we are part of a tremendous movement of people who have been working in the public interest on technology and program delivery for a long time. These are just a smattering of folks who have been working in that field. There are also organizations who are doing this work in your communities, organizations like mutual aid networks, associations like What Works Cities, NGA, NASIO, ELGL, and many, many funders and supporters of this work, some of whom are in the room today. So I just want to acknowledge that we are here, but we are really shoulder to shoulder with so many people who are doing this work. As Jen mentioned, we came about in March of 2020 to create US Digital Response all together. Frankly, it was like a kernel of an idea that Jen and Raylene and some others came together to just say, could we help in a small way with at least a few of the core needs that we were hearing from governments around the country? And could we get a few people to step up to help? Today, we'll share a little bit about what's been happening, but we've grown beyond the COVID-19 pandemic response and into an organization where we pair experienced technologists pro bono with government and other community-based organizations who are responding to crisis writ broadly, so that we can help to deliver critical services and infrastructure in the service of the public. So the couple of things, I know that's probably familiar to you, but a couple of things that you may not know, because for many of you, it's possible you really only worked on your individual project with US Digital Response and didn't have the visibility that we did into everything else that was happening. So over the last 13 months, we've worked on nearly 300 projects across governments and non-governmental organization partners. We have also worked with partners in 36 states and territories, including everyone from Empire Justice all the way in Rochester, New York, to the Northern Mariana Islands, to cities, counties, states, tribal authorities, and community-based organizations. All of you, in raising your hands to actually partner and get some assistance in doing your critical work, were joined by thousands of people who raised their hands to help and were compelled by the work that you all were doing. So 731, maybe different by today, we might have placed a volunteer this morning. Volunteers have actually been placed on these projects, and those were sourced from a pool of nearly 7,000 people who raised their hands to help. I also want to mention that as part of this work, many of you started by designing something that was going to help your community, but were able to lay the seeds for things that went on to help many others around the country. And so there have been things that have been built at USDR that scaled to many other places, including an elections template that started in one county and later was deployed to 10 counties in 6 states. Similarly, our unemployment insurance program is now partnering with 9 different states across the country. And our storefront tool, which helped to deliver produce, actually was part of distributing more than 40,000 boxes of fresh produce in more than 5 different locations. And these solutions, because of you helping us to create them, were able to then be built and deployed for partners, in some cases as quickly as in under an hour for new folks who want to use them. The other thing that may not be apparent to you all from the outside that I wanted to mention is the behind the scenes world. So in order to keep up with the demand that you all had for assistance, there was a lot that got built behind the scenes at US Digital Response. So there's a small full-time internal team at USDR that acts as our skeleton, but fundamentally we are powered by volunteers, and we have teams who work on every part of our operations. In particular, I just want to call out, there's a governments team who are the ones who actually field those initial intake calls when you all reach out for assistance and help to scope a project. There's a projects team that actually makes sure that project delivery happens and that those lessons get shared. There's a volunteers team that interviews every single one of those nearly 700 volunteers that we have placed, more than 700 volunteers. There's a tools team who actually make sure that as we need new tools quickly spun up, we can get those ready. And there's a marketing team who make sure that the stories of what's been done are able to be shared much more broadly. You've also inspired others, and we put 2 examples here from the Times and from GovTech magazine, but I know you all, and I'd love for anyone to share in chat, you all have examples of moments where projects that you worked on, where you stretched this year, received some well-deserved recognition from your communities for the ways in which you managed to meet the moment. And finally, I just want to say that I know we're here to thank you today, and I am the face that you're seeing right now, but I hope you realize that one of your enduring impacts, beyond what you've actually built, is the impact that you've had on the volunteers who have worked with you. I'll show you this video briefly in a moment that just is a representative sample of 2 or 3, but we have actually over a dozen people we can point to who started working for the first time in this field through US Digital Response and have now turned and become employees in some broader way in the public interest technology or government space. So thank you all for all of that work.
I appreciate that they were willing, especially the early partners before we had really established any track record, that they were willing to work with us. And I think that initial willingness requires a lot of courage.
When you have a partner who's really interested in technology and interested in innovative ideas, it makes your job a lot easier.
It was the perfect marry of just being able to learn more about government, but also using my skills to help update and refresh our government.
From a skill level, I think I learned a lot about how government agencies work, what their challenges and pain points are, how to best work with them to solve their problems. And this was an area that was completely new to me, so it's been an exciting opportunity.
There's lots of things that they could spend money on from a digital standpoint, but what's the stuff that's going to have the most value and affect the most people positively?
I think our partners are really amazing. I'm glad that there are people like that working every day to help people.
So you don't just have to hear it from me. I wanted to make sure you heard it from some others, and just multiply that out now to several hundred people who marvel at the work that all of you are doing day in and day out, and who truly enjoy getting to know and to work with you and to roll up their sleeves alongside you on some of the issues in your community. So that said, now for the exciting part of the event, we are here to give out some awards. And to do this, I'm going to invite Raylene Young, the CEO of USDR and one of its co-founders, up on stage with me.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. And I just am kind of feeling, I would just say I would echo all those feelings expressed by the other people in that video. I have learned so much from all of you over the past year, and just am really, really excited to be here.
I'm so glad. And so today's awards, let me just talk about what they're about. So truly the idea behind the Stretch Clap Award is that every single partner that we've worked with is meriting of an award in some way for all that you all are doing and have done. What we decided to do was basically say, okay, we have at this point these 290 different stories that people have done, things that they've built, projects that they've run. Let's pick out 5 individual things that we really, really want to honor today and turn them into awards so that we can tell you a few stories of what some of your partners have been up to in their respective communities that have been truly uniquely kind of creative. So as you watch these awards and listen to these stories, we would love if you want to pop in and share any stories of your own that this makes you think of. We recognize that for each one that we mentioned here, there are probably dozens that have something in common with that story. And today we're going to give out 5 awards, which we'll describe a little bit as we go through them.
Great, and to kick us off with our first award, I want to introduce the Seed Award, and this is the, in the tech term, this is the kind of seed, but also in a plant. So this is the award to the project that built something that grew on to help others. So really excited about this one. I think people who've talked to me know that I just love how many of our projects at USDR we've really been able to translate those learnings to other partners, and all the work that you are doing, we're able to help carry to other places. So go ahead, Jess.
All right, we are so excited today to present the Cleary Award to, drum roll please, Harris County in Texas. And this is for their student election clerk program. Let me tell you a little bit about this program. And so in Harris County, they are the 3rd largest county in the US. They have more than 4.7 million voters, and they have been working their tails off for the variety of election seasons this year and all of the changes that were happening in the midst of the pandemic in order to make sure that polls were accessible and everyone could also get access to vote by mail. In this case, they've been running a student election clerk program where they actually allow high schoolers to volunteer and to work then actually and be placed as student election clerks at polling places. One of the challenges this year was that the process was completely manual. And generally, it would actually take them a ton of time to manually review an average of 5,000 student applications, with each application taking about 5 minutes to process. So when we met with Harris County and they asked us for some help, we were able to actually work with them to start a completely new online application and kind of database management system. And we started that and launched it within 2 weeks to start receiving applications. Then that went fully live and was able to actually handle the election season heading into the next 2 months. And the incredible team in Harris County ended up processing more than 7,000 applications, staff more than 700 election clerks across more than 100 polling locations over the early voting and election day period. And they went on to actually win a Cleary Award, a clearinghouse award from the US Election Assistance Commission for the management of that student election clerk program. That tool then went on to be used in many other counties and is something that we still get requests for help with today. So congratulations, Harris County. Thank you so much.
Congratulations. And so up next, we have the Scale Award. And this is, obviously there's some unfair bias if you are working in a larger state or government, but this one is awarded to the project that had just an incredible number of people impacted and supported by the work.
All right, drum roll, please. The Scale Award goes to LA County in California. And so let me just talk to you for a second about LA County. We are so impressed at the kind of depth of work that happened over this past year. We were able to partner with 5 different county departments and offices on 10 projects, staffing about 20 volunteers over the course of this year. And the projects ranged from projects on financial empowerment, working with the Department of Consumer and Business Affairs Center for Financial Empowerment to actually create a public-facing service map, to improving immigrant access to services, working with LA County's Office of Immigrant Affairs, and actually releasing just a few weeks ago a newly designed website that they released to serve as an open door for the more than 3.6 million immigrants in LA County to be able to access information. And it was one of the first times they've actually been able to visualize in one place all of the different services that are available to the immigrant community in LA County. So there are many projects that we could mention. They've been incredibly creative, but we really want to acknowledge them for the amount of people that they have tried to impact with better digital services over the course of this year across a wide variety of needs.
And something I probably said to folks on this call who I've been on calls with, I was actually born and raised in LA County. So every time a project with LA County has crossed our table, I've just been extra excited for that reason. So thank you for all the work that's been done there over the last year. So I think this one, I want to tell a little story about the name for this award and maybe embarrass the person on the call for it. But this is the Speed of Need Award. And something that happened in the very, very early days of US digital response was, this question like, can we be helpful? Like, how fast can we move? Like, how fast is this help needed? And actually Ross Dakin from the New Jersey Office of Innovation was the one who I think coined this and said, oh, USDR team moves at the speed of need. So now it's enshrined in an award and it's very descriptive, but this will go to the partners and projects where just we were blown away by the speed, the kind of speed of everyone moving and the time it took to go from a problem to a solution that really helped people.
And this award is also an award that we have 3 different winners for. So I'll tell the stories of each of them as we go. So you might need to do triple the drum roll. All right, so our first awardee is the City of Seattle. The City of Seattle, I think a lot of people can empathize with what faced Seattle, which was that all of a sudden overnight, they were asked to create testing capacity for COVID-19, and they were one of the worst hit cities early on. And this was not something that the city had in its back pocket. Any city had in its back pocket. And so the team in Seattle reached out to USDR, and I think we started working with them over a weekend and immediately started to work with them on scheduling options for that to allow for testing sites to get spun up. And they were able to actually spin up the technology over that next week, begin actually serving residents within 3 weeks. And within 6 months, they had tested over 450,000 people using the city's free sites. Our second awardee here is the Virginia Department of Elections team. So this actually has a little bit of similarities to Harris County. They were also trying to figure out ways where they could, at a state level, allow people to sign up to run the polls at their local precinct, and then be able to deliver those sign-up lists periodically to the registrars of Virginia's about 120 or so localities. And so this was something that tended to be done almost entirely manually. And under the stress of the pandemic and needing to find so many new poll workers because it wasn't safe for the existing ones to always serve, within a week, they worked with USDR to move to an automated process. And this was a Google Sheets plus a form builder plus a daily script that actually sent information to each local office. And one thing that I think will resonate with everyone, this ended up also being completely free because it used existing tools that the office had. So congratulations to Virginia Department of Elections for moving incredibly quickly to meet a need. Finally, we have the Wisconsin Department of Workforce Development. And many of you might have heard this story. It was something that came out recently and actually also featured 18F, who are some of the other players in this space. So USDR has been doing some work with states to support their unemployment insurance work. And Wisconsin got really creative. And they basically said, we want to make some major improvements to our unemployment insurance system, but we need to do it quickly. And we recognize that if we do it as one big behemoth, it's very unlikely to work. If you try to do it all whole hog, it'll probably take years and millions of dollars and not actually be user-centered in the way that we need to make it. So they partnered with USDR and then also 18F, and they are actually running a 10-week RFP design and vendor selection process, and they are going to break up the procurement for this into modular contracts with the goal that they actually can sign a vendor within weeks instead of within potentially years.
I love these stories so much. And also on that last one, I just remember, I think it took just under 3 weeks to go from kind of this initial conversation to 2 signed contracts with USDR and 18F to help them with their program. And I think just blowing away people's idea of how long it takes to sign contracts at the state level. So it was really incredible. All right, this one is probably the slogan that most people have heard the most of at USDR, other than maybe the stretch clap. And it's really the Demos Not Memos Award. And this goes to work that I think has really demonstrated the fact that how do you, the important thing is to kind of like solve immediate user problems very quickly and kind of build on the results of that and sort of, improve the solution over time, but never lose sight of the people that are being impacted today and tomorrow.
All right, drum roll, please. The Demos Not Memos Award goes to Neighborhood Preservation Inc. in Memphis and all of their community partners. And this is a story that I think, another story that has been just top of mind and is still top of mind. There are in Memphis thousands of citizens and residents who are struggling to pay rent, and there's a major risk of mass evictions. So NPI and their partners at the Memphis Area Legal Services and the University of Memphis Law School have put in place a program that actually takes CARES Act funding, volunteer legal assistance, and kind of match makes it, sometimes with assistance on utilities as well, and match makes it with people who are in need of those funding. And what was happening was there were hundreds of requests for assistance, and it was taking a long time to actually be able to deliver that assistance. So in this case, NPI came together really, really quickly and worked with some USDR volunteers and their partners to build an automated intake process. And the reason that we wanted to say Demos Not Memos is because they were able to launch it within just a few weeks to actually get that initial surge of applicants. And then for the few weeks thereafter, they have continued to actually tweak that form and that process to make it better and better, to the point that now it collects many different signatures. It can collect key documents to verify identity. It can actually route across a bunch of different nonprofit partners. Not all of that happened on day one, but they continued to iterate and kind of demo, not memo, their way until the current day. And just to give you a sense, and actually Steve will be here later to talk to it, but their result wise, they had a 75% reduction in the time that it takes their legal clerks to prepare a case, and more than 200 evictions that were mitigated and settled through this program so far.
And again, maybe I'm the fun fact person on these awards, but one fun fact on that last project and partner, and we'll hear from Steve in a minute, but I will also say that the MPI team in Memphis has done, maybe wins an award for, showed our volunteers so much of what Memphis is like, including teaching us about Elvis and Texas and Memphis barbecue. So I think it's been a joy to kind of see how the volunteers have learned so much about that city through their work. All right, and now we're kind of on to the last one, and this is the Ecosystem Award. And this one I'm incredibly excited about, in that it's something where I think something we're all working towards is how to make all of these improvements really work at scale. Like, how do we take the things that have worked well in your cities and states and get them to more people, and get them to the whole country and to everyone, and maybe the whole world, and everyone who can benefit from these improvements. So this goes to partners who I think have, in many ways, either through the projects that we've worked on with them or just the resources they've made available to us and to others, I think have really taken the work they've done and leveled it up into something that has improved the overall ecosystem for the better. And we've been really, really glad to be able to work with them over the past year.
And for these, we'll actually just scroll through them each. There's 3 winners. We'll scroll through them all, and then I will just talk about them all collectively, because I think they have so many things in common. So the New York City Mayor's Office of the CTO. We have the Colorado Digital Service. And we have the New Jersey Office of Innovation. And so to speak collectively on these, and Raylene will hop in as well, these 3 offices are all from their various seats at the state or city level. They have used their perch to try and help other departments or other agencies all across the city or the state. And so in the case of New York City, they actually started a fellowship program where they would go scope projects with other agencies and departments within the city, and then work with us to place USDR teams as part of being able to fulfill the needs of digital service delivery in those individual agencies and departments. They also invested a ton of time in those volunteer fellows in trying to actually teach them about the ways of government, and gave them Gov 101 and Digital Gov 101 courses, little lunch and learns over the course of their time. Raylene, maybe you can speak to New Jersey.
Yes, sure. And I was also going to add, for all three of these, I think not just helping agencies and their departments in their city or state or region, but a lot of the work that they have done, we've been able to help bring to other states. And I think New Jersey is maybe one of the best examples of this, where multiple times over the past year, we've worked on something together that has benefited small business owners, let's say in New Jersey. We've been able to take that work and template it and make it available to other states as far away as California and Hawaii. And something that's been so wonderful is just the enthusiasm that the New Jersey team has brought into both the work for their state, but also helping us get it in front of other people. So it's been wonderful to work with. Congrats. And
on the Colorado Digital Service side, this is also their first small and mighty, actually big and mighty year of operation. And they have taken a team that had a whole different set of charges and topics at the start of 2020 and pivoted in so many ways to make sure that they could serve other counties and needs across Colorado, but have also similarly tried to pull on best practices and share best practices by utilizing open source tools, by showing up themselves to collaborative gatherings, and actually by, at times, actually publishing what they're learning and the case studies of what they've tried for other people to learn from. So in all three of those cases, we are thrilled to honor them with the Ecosystem Award, and we are thrilled to be working with you. And with that said, there will be one more surprise award at the very end of today, but we are going to transition now. And before we do so, we have a very important pause point. And I'll go to the next slide, which is we want to pause and give all of these winners an enormous stretch clap. And by winners, I also mean everyone here, because everybody's been part of this story. So if you all could join me and look goofy, even if you're alone in your office, and just do a quick stretch clap for all of these amazing partners. And now that we've got our shoulders warmed up, we are so thrilled to welcome a couple of our partners from across the country to tell you what this year has been like in their own words. And so I will pause while we get all of them up on screen. All right, I believe we are, yes, we are slowly having them join us. Wonderful. We have a few more joining us now. So as we have our various folks joining us for this panel, I want to kind of give an overview. We're going to be talking for just about 20 minutes here together, and we're really curious to hear from you on the ground. If you could just give an introduction, and then we'd love for you to answer two questions. One question being, could you share with the community here one story of how you and your team stretched to meet the needs of this past year? And could you share some thoughts around, based on your work with USDR and other community members over this past year, how do you think about stretching to meet crises in the future? What's different about looking forward? And I'd love to start with Christina, if you want to introduce yourself and give us some thoughts.
Hey y'all, my name is Christina Nichols, and I am a senior recruitment specialist for the Elections Administrator Office in Harris County in Houston, Texas. Basically what that means, it's just a fancy word for saying I place high school students as electronic support specialists at all of our polling locations in Harris County for every election. A success story or how we stretched. It's hard to pick one moment. Harris County elections as a whole to make voting more accessible for folks in general and to deal with the COVID crisis. We've added more early voting locations and election day locations in November. We had drive-through voting for those who didn't want to get out of their car and risk that exposure to COVID. We mailed out mail ballots to every eligible voter that was 65 years of age or older. We had ballot by mail drop boxes. We did all of these things collectively to make voting easier for the residents of Harris County. And the students and the student program stepped up specifically as well to kind of fill that gap where some of our older poll workers who are afraid of being exposed sat out the November election, and these students who were younger really stepped up. And working with USDR has been amazing. I want to thank you guys all so much for the work that you've done with us. And in preparing with you all daily, it puts us in a better place if we do have a crisis. If we prepare ahead of time, we're gonna be in a good place if we do have a crisis. And you all have worked with us so efficiently. I think we're in a good place to be able to do that.
Thank you, Christina, and congratulations also on the recognition for that program. I know that you all are already looking ahead to the next election cycle, and there's really so little time off actually we've been realizing for county election workers all across the country, given all that you do.
We're in the middle of early voting right now.
Exactly. We never knew how many elections there were until we started to work with all of you. So with that said, I would actually love to pass the mic over to Catherine from New York. If you could introduce yourself and share some thoughts on your side.
Awesome. Yes. Hello, everyone. So excited to be here. My name is Catherine Benjamin. I'm the Deputy CTO for Digital Services at the New York City Mayor's Office of the CTO. So I'm first going to tell you a little bit about an example of where we stretched over the last year, and also how some of our learnings can help us stretch in the future. So when I'm done, I'll put some links in the channel in case you want to read more about the specific project I want to tell you about, which is the Connected NYCHA Older Adults Program. So if you can think back to May of 2020, you'll recall that things were quite hectic at that point in terms of crisis response. And one of the things we knew is that there were older adults in New York living in NYCHA, which is New York City Housing Authority buildings, who were in areas of low broadband connectivity, who did not have access to the internet, and in many cases were living alone or were living with another older adult. And so it was incredibly important to address their needs. And so this project was about getting 10,000 internet connected tablets to those older adults living in NYCHA buildings. And this happened over several weeks. So we moved really fast. We worked really closely with our partners at NYCHA and also at the Department for the Aging. And just to take a step back, and this is what I'll drop on the channel for all you designers in the room, thinking about how you're going to do that is an exercise in end-to-end service design, because it's about the unboxing experience. It's about what that person sees when they turn on the tablet. Thinking about multilingual access, because not everyone turning on a tablet is speaking English. So is that device going to be kitted for them? Will there be a phone number with a multilingual support line? Those were all things that we considered, so that whole end-to-end process had been considered. And so the real, one of the best moments from this was contrary to what many of us hear in crisis response, which is there's no time for user research. There's never a better time for user research, one might argue. And so we were really pleased to say that despite the speed, and it was very, very, very long hours and people working really quickly, we did include user research as part of this. And we were really delighted to have the mayor of New York actually read out some of the quotes that we had gathered with consent from the users to be shared. And so while I won't read them in full, just to give you a sense of what people said upon receiving the tablet, we heard from some people who used it to access medical services while staying in their home. So it meant they weren't going out into the community. They were not putting themselves at risk of COVID. One of our favorite stories is about someone who said they used the tablet to access YouTube to listen to music from their youth they hadn't heard, in a very, very long time. And so they gave us the name of that song. And as user researchers, we were able to listen to that song and sort of close our eyes and imagine that person in their apartment dancing around their flat, because that's what they said they were doing, it was this amazing empathy building moment to really ground yourself in what the experience of that user was. And then we also heard about an older adult who was using it to stay connected with family, and that her grandson had taught her how to do some gaming. I forget the name of the game. I think probably Justin can jump in the chat and name it. So that was an amazing project that, thank you, Justin, that we worked on. And related to that, and still actually referring to our partners over at the Department for the Aging, one of the ways in which we're stretching in the future, I think, is that through this year, I think what we've really seen is never underestimate your partner's ability and openness to trying new ways of working. So I really hope that Waldo's still on the call right now, because this partly relates to some things that he's helped out with. And if you've read our Beck Center case study, which I'm sure many of you have not yet, but you should, there's a project that we did with the New York City Department for the Aging about a service finder tool. And so think of it like Expedia, but for finding services for older adults. Why this is important and how it sort of helped us stretch forward in the future and will help us in the future is that the process we went through, where our design lab did a discovery, we worked with the USDR to do an NYCX Innovation Fellows, where over 10 weeks, they took that discovery work and built an alpha prototype. And now we're working with the Department for the Aging to do a beta pilot in a sort of modular contracting way of working. Why this is so excited is because the other day we were on a call with our partners, and it was amazing because someone who wasn't necessarily that close to the project said something about sort of more of a waterfall procurement. And one of our partners at DIFTA, who's not a technology person, instantly jumped in to sort of correct and talk about agile and modular contracting and user-centered design. And this was before we even unmuted ourselves. And you know, if you're in these meetings, you're in the habit of having to interject to say, oh no, waterfall's maybe not the best way to do it. Let's do it this way. But before we on the Mocto team had an opportunity to do that, the DIFTA team themselves were jumping in on that. So such an amazing opportunity, and demonstrates that every single time we work together with partners, it's not just that one intervention. The thing can be a learning experience. And so don't hesitate to sort of try to do best case interventions on every single opportunity, because you never know how many times that's going to be replicable. And then also just a shout out to the members of the USDR community who helped with that, because when we said, hey, can anyone talk to us about modular contracting? People actually showed up and were like, yeah, I can help you. And those one-off questions that I almost didn't send on Twitter totally paid off and made a huge difference. So I think I went over my time limit, sorry, but I hope you liked those stories.
How could we not? That was incredibly inspiring. And I think it's also just I think so few of these stories get to be told. And that's why today was so exciting to us, was that there is a level of insider baseball where all of you have been doing the internal work of trying to make this culture change and delivery happen from within the walls. So today is the day to be able to share those stories. So with that said, I will move from a city partner actually to one of our nonprofit partners. And Steve, would love to hear your story.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here, and I'm so proud of my Demos Not Memos award. I love jumping in and trying, and I believe that the incremental approach to problem solving is the best thing that we can do, especially in the normal environment of a nonprofit and a government agency of very limited resources. How did we and my team, my organization, and our partners stretch to meet the needs in the pandemic? We shifted from our normal everyday work of policy and collaborative building in rooms full of people and innovation with lots of activity in neighborhoods to a totally work from home environment, which was very challenging for everybody in the world. But I felt like it was especially for us because our main thing was to get people together, you know. So our job is to get people together, and now we can't do it the way that we used to do it. But we were able to adapt using technology. My team is now incredibly adept at virtual meetings. We've actually grown the number of group sessions that we have locally and nationally. And we've grown the participation in that as a team, including one of my team members I'm most proud of is a woman in her 70s who mastered Zoom during the pandemic. And she is now teaching neighborhood leaders how to have neighborhood meetings on Zoom. she used to be showing up at their neighborhood meetings every week and, you know, helping them hold together. But now she's teaching them how to pick back up. In one case, we found about a large neighborhood association called the Fraser Neighborhood Exchange in the north part of town that had had a continuous weekly lunch meeting on Thursdays for 20 years. And they had stopped for 3 months because of the pandemic. So we got involved and we let them use our Zoom account, and we taught them how to use it, and we taught their president how to turn on his camera on his laptop at his house. And they've been having weekly meetings ever since with our support. So that's a really exciting thing that my team has done to stretch to meet the needs of the pandemic. In terms of what USDR has done to change how I think about stretching in the future, I will start by saying I didn't know what I didn't know. I'm 51 years old, even though I look like I'm 21. I was pretty uncomfortable with new technology. You know, I've had some of my, you know, millennial staff members say, well, why don't we try this or why don't we try that? And I'll be curmudgeon who's like, come on, I'm sick of that. You know, just send me an email. So I was fairly uncomfortable with some of the new tech, especially the multiple new techs that you need to do automated process flows. But I now know, I've always known that it's important to try to keep up with those tech solutions, but working with USDR changed my whole approach to designing and thinking about new projects. Specifically, how to think about tech and how to think about the role of technologists in an automated process flows. The last 2 sentences I wouldn't have said in March of 2020 because I didn't know most of those words, or at least I didn't know exactly what they meant. But the technology and the process and connecting the work to that, it is a core part of how we think about our programs now. And we were able to build on the small project that we did in the fall of 2020 under using CARES Act dollars, and partnering with USDR again to launch something even bigger and build something even stronger. And so I think that the future is, you know, very bright for our use of technology to automate processes. And my favorite thing about using technology in a community outreach or community service kind of a role is that it frees up the people who have one-on-one contact with community members to talk about important things and not about stupid things like what is your name and what is your address and what's wrong with your email. Instead, we can get that tech smooth, and then we can focus on solving problems and getting to the root of things quicker. Thank you so much for the award and for USDR's incredible role in my organization and in the city of Memphis and Shelby County's outreach during the pandemic. It's really been an incredible, meaningful impact.
Thank you, Steve. And thank you for sharing that story. And thank you for sharing so many Memphis facts and Elvis facts and barbecue facts and tastings over the course of our time working together. We just brighten every time our teams get to work with you. Michelle, could you share the perspective of Colorado? You all are at the state level, right in the middle of it.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Michelle Park here, and I'm a product manager at Colorado Digital Service, currently working on the COVID exposure notifications effort. And I'm really excited to be here to share some learnings on behalf of my team. I think for some background on this particular project, so exposure notifications is a service on your iPhone or your Android device, and it enables users who test positive for COVID-19 to anonymously alert people who were in close proximity to them. And so Colorado, we rolled this out back in October for our community. And I think one way we really stretched this year is in consistently putting in effort to make sure our work on exposure notifications can really be reused by other people in other states who run into similar problems. I think one particular example that stands out to me is, I think because this was a large collaboration across private and public sector organizations, so this is Apple, Google, state governments, data sources for the system were really scattered and pretty difficult to access. And so it was hard for us to see how the service was doing on a given day. And we noticed in particular that other states were also facing similar challenges. And So thanks to some help with incredible volunteers from USDR, USDS, we worked on automatically aggregating those metrics and updating them into a spreadsheet so that everyone could have more visibility into it. And I think from the beginning, we kept a close eye out on how to build something as general as possible so other people could reuse it and so that we could open source it, and really doing our best to be in the room so we can share it with other states. And I think we got really lucky as well in partnering with fantastic volunteers who are willing to go that extra mile. So I want to give a big thank you to USDR, particularly our volunteers, Steve, Greg, and Vicky, for being a part of this. Yeah, I think in terms of responding to crises going forward, I think one important thing I learned was to start as early as possible in really empowering our partners to share our goals with us, and to communicate what that looks like early on. I think working in this space is pretty challenging, especially during COVID. And partnering with organizations like USDR gave us a lot more flexibility to stretch, even during crisis. And I think it was really worthwhile to take time up front to understand what our volunteers were interested in, what their skills were, and how to really empower them as quickly as we could to do their best work with us. Yeah, I think, the past year changed the way I thought about team culture with everyone being remote. I think there's a lot more value in really investing in those relationships early. Yeah, I think working with USDR really reminded me how many good people are willing and able to help if they're given the right space to do so. Yeah, I think that's a wrap for our learnings on our end.
Wow. I went through a whole emotional arc with you, Michelle, and I think a lot of other people kind of like, you just held up the mirror on a lot of the emotions of this past year. So thank you so much. And Tina, would you be willing to kind of take us home for this last moment in the panel before we close?
It'd be my honor. Everyone, this is part therapy and part just the celebration I know I needed. So I hope all of you feel that way. My name's Tina Walla, and I'm Director of Innovation and Performance in Seattle, which is our multidisciplinary innovation unit in the mayor's office. And in the last year, I'm going to highlight our award-winning stretch, which was setting up the city's free COVID-19 testing sites. And to make this stretch a reality, we essentially had to stand up a whole new line of business, and we had 3 weeks. And if you fast forward to now, we've conducted over 730,000 COVID tests at our public free sites. We have a significant, we have a significant portion of folks who come to the test sites, they're not even from Seattle. And I believe that shows the power of intentional service design and of having technology that enables your business processes rather than the other way around, right? I just have to give such a big shout out to USDR, who helped us find a technology partner like over a weekend and just stood with us every step of the way while we were trying to figure out where the sites would go and who would staff them and how we would pay for all of this. I'm so delighted and really proud to say that our test sites, we have an average customer rating of 4.9 out of 5 stars. And again, that is the power of putting residents first, thinking about their experience and designing something that, particularly during the onset of COVID, it was really scary. So I'm so proud of that work. And when I think about stretching, looking forward, I've got 3 key takeaways. First, don't be shy, ask for help. It sounds so basic, but everyone on this call knows that if we think back to last spring, it was a tough time to be in government. Not just because of COVID, but because we didn't have our strong partner at the federal level, right? So all of us, all these stories we're sharing, we all felt sort of on our own. And so when I think about moving forward, if anything else comes up like this, I'm not going to be shy. I'm going to ask for help. Second point, which is related, is get creative and search for unlikely allies. I don't think I'd ever plan to use this phrase in a webinar, but I slid into Jen Palka's DMs last March, I think it was. And I just remember saying, okay, we don't know each other that well, but what do you think? And could there be a way to help? And of course, Jen mentioned, well, we've got this idea. And of course, it became USDR. So seek out unlikely allies, be creative. My third and final point that I'll end with is we are all so capable of so much. And I get emotional because I think when each of us stretch personally, it makes government all the more flexible. It allows government to try new things, and it wouldn't happen without people. So the people I see on my screen right now, but then all of y'all who are listening in, just remember that anything that comes our way, we can handle it, we can do it. And the last year demonstrates that. So much love and appreciation to USDR. Thanks.
All right, everybody. I think we do a collective breath after that, Tina, and this whole panel. And then I think that was an incredible transition to the last thing that we wanted to share with you all. And for this last moment, thank you all so much to all of these partners and speakers here. The last thing we wanted to share, I will actually bring Jen back up on screen with me for a moment of pause. So we'll hold for a sec, let everybody kind of take their breath and get Jen up here with her video. And while you're doing that, just loosen up your arms because I think you know what's coming. All right. All right, well, what I wanted to share with you all and what we want to share with you all is we might have highlighted a few stories today for a few of those 5 awards, but truly USDR is not the hero here. You all are the heroes, and your community are the people who we just think about day in, and we look up to you so much for all of the work that you do. So for every single government or NGO partner of USDR who has been on today, all of you receive the Stretch Clap Award of 2020 to 2021. And truly, we will be following up with every one of those 5 award winners that we mentioned today, as well as everyone who is here, with a place to put your mailing address so we can send you a small token under the gift limit, appropriate for the moment, of appreciation for all that you did. And we hope to have more excuses to bring you all together to share your story moving forward. Thank you all so much. We're going to bring up a video to close and see you out, but we hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day, and we cannot wait to keep working with you and showcasing your stories. Thank you so, so much.
I still remember a Saturday night in March or April, on a Saturday night at like 9 p.m. talking to Jen Palka saying, we don't know how we're going to do this. We don't know what's happening at the state and this and that. And she said, we've got you. And I just remember sleeping better that night. Like, okay, we have help. Help is on the way. It's been huge.
I just can't express enough how pivotal USDR was during a moment where we were really in crisis.
It'll just take them a week or so. We'll get our ducks in a row while we're waiting for volunteers to show up. And a day later, we had 4 people ready to go.
They taught us how to fish, right? So they gave us tools that we were then able to carry on as we continued to do this work.
They really worked closely with us to understand what the problem was, but with the idea in mind that they were there to help find a solution that worked for us. They weren't trying to push anything down our throat. They weren't trying to force us into something that we didn't want to do. It was, how can we help?
We each put our best expertise side by side, which are going to help us continue to make progress on these problems that otherwise feel really intractable.
I have no idea why someone would not want to work with USDR. It seems to me like a no-brainer. Of course you should work with USDR. The work they've done has literally saved lives. And that's something that we're all eternally grateful for and want to see USDR grow and thrive.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And happy first annual Stretch Clap Awards. Stretch clapping for you all as you head out. Thank you again. Bye all.